All right, everyone, we're going to get started. How are we doing today? Good? Before we get started, I want everybody to stand up real quick. I know you just sat down, and I'm sorry about that, but hopefully we're going to get... I want the energy level to be a little bit higher today than it normally is for Ty, and because it's not the 8 a.m. lecture like it was earlier for me, I'm going to be a little bit more energetic, so I want you guys to match that. Very, very simple. Hopefully you sat next to your crush today, because what I want you to do is just introduce yourself to the person next to you that you might not know, and just talk for like 30 seconds to a minute, just to get a little noise in here, just get a little energy, okay? Let's go ahead and do that. Everyone that was walking in during that time was like, what in the hell is going on in here? Look, I'm so excited to be here. Hopefully you guys are doing well, right? It's a Friday. The semester is still young, so we just got out of syllabus week. I'm a student myself, so I'm in the same boat that you guys are in. New Year's resolutions, how are those going? Yeah? Thanks for the high level of interaction. They must be going really well. I can tell you, who works out at North Rec? Raise your hand. Yeah, you guys are killing your New Year's resolutions, because that gym has been packed since the new year started. But for the rest of you, look, how many of you maybe set a New Year's resolution to get a job or an internship for this year? Raise your hands high. Yeah, so a good majority of you, okay? For those of you, you're in good hands, because today what we're going to be talking about, I think that the title of the lecture is Job Search and Discovery, right? So you're in good hands because we're going to give you some materials for that. For everyone else, if you have an internship or you're not looking for right now, what I'd like to add to the title of the lecture, instead of Job Search and Discovery, I think it should be Job Search and Life Discovery, because the strategies that I'm employing today will not only be useful to help you get an internship or a job, but also to help you live a more fulfilling life. And then that is my promise today. So I've got two promises for you before you leave this room. One is that if you're looking for a job, you're going to leave this room with a strategy that's going to help you get that job. And two, if you're not looking for a job, I can promise you that the strategy that I'll be employing here today will help you live a more fulfilling life, and that's my goal. Okay? With that being said, the interaction obviously is something that I want a little bit more of. Okay? I'm not sure how much Ty fosters that in this class. I guarantee it's more than most classes, but in this particular lecture, I want the interaction high. So when I ask for your interaction, instead of raising your hand, I want you to say I. And I want you to say it loud and proud. So like when I say, where are all my freshmen in the room? Say I. Exactly. Where are the sophomores? Aye. And the juniors? Any seniors? Yes, thank you. It's always the worst response. We'll keep going on with this, okay? Until you guys are ready. Like who hates the cold? That should be the whole room. Who hates the cold? Yeah, but who's still going out tonight? Yeah, and who's going to pools tonight? Yeah. Okay, gotcha. You never really know when you're going to go to pools. You just kind of, next thing you know, it's 1 a.m. and you're on the dance floor making out with somebody. So look, to cut through all the humor and stuff, why I'm here is because Ty Sheffer is a huge mentor of mine and a good friend through the Honors Cohort program. And last summer, he asked me if I'd be willing to share my story and my experiences to help others in their internship search, most importantly. And I said yes, and I did this last semester for 2 of his classes. I'm doing it in this semester. And I said yes without any hesitation because of the way that I view the college, your college career. And so hear me out on this. So for all the freshmen and sophomores, say aye. Aye. Yes, all of you guys, you're in stage 1 and 2. There are 4 stages to your college career. All right, they align with the years that you're in. Stage 1 and 2, you should be selfish. You should focus on yourself. Invest in your education. Read a lot of books. Study all the time. Learn, and figure out what you want to be doing with your life. And then stage 3, where are my juniors? Say aye. 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 So all of you guys are in stage 3. And that's a great part because it's execution time for you. You spent 2 years, hopefully, figuring out what you want to do with your life. And if not, that's okay. But But your stage 3 is the time to execute, to figure out, how do I get it done? So then you enter stage 4, and my seniors, yeah. Stage 4 is my favorite, because the way I see stage 4 is being able to give back, right? You've been at the institution in Ohio State in this community for 3+ years. So many people have given you so much, at least that's the way I feel, and your 4th year should be about meeting with underclassmen and giving back, sharing your advice, and paying it forward. So that's why I'm here today. With that being said, look, I'm challenged and excited to be here, because I'm excited, one, because I do get to give back, and that's what I love. I'm challenged because I have 50 minutes with you all today, and what I'm going to be sharing with you usually takes me about 15 to 20 hours with a lot of other students. So I promise I'm not going to keep you that long, okay? But I'm not exaggerating with that. In terms of giving back, one of the things that I did around this time last year was start an investment banking program for freshmen. So all my freshmen in the room say aye. You all right now are going to be seeing some marketing coming your way about an investment banking program. And what it does is it introduces freshmen into the industry of investment banking, but more so, it prepares you for your interviewing, for your networking, for your resume building. A lot of that same career search advice is going to be shared today. And so regardless of what success looks like to you, it doesn't need to be investment banking, and I hope for everyone in the room that it's not that. Right? The last time I gave this presentation, I helped a girl decide between investment banking and playing guitar. Right? She didn't follow the money, but she followed her heart, and that's what really matters. And another person I helped get into the acting business. Even though that's completely foreign to me, these principles and the strategies are pretty similar and can be used throughout. Okay? So let me show you something, and this is going to be the basis of our presentation. And it's called the success cycle. Now, I was inspired by Tony Robbins to create this. He has a very similar one. But I changed it and adapted it to what I feel is most effective and to what I feel is most relevant for our lives right now. And we're going to start with the why and the what, because this is what truly kicks off your life. And without the why, you're going for a target aimlessly. You don't know what you're doing. If you want to change the world, you got to know why you want to change the world. How many of you know what you want to do? Say aye, right after graduation. Yeah, so a pretty good amount of you. But do you truly know why you want to do that? If you do, say aye. Okay, so a pretty good number. That's good. So for you guys, I'm going to challenge you to really focus in on the next 10, 15 minutes as we talk about why, and really ask yourself, am I telling I know why I want to do it, something because it makes me comfortable to say that? Or do I truly know why I'm here on this earth? What is my purpose, and am I going to fulfill that? I think somebody that explains this really well is Simon Sinek in his YouTube TED Talk. And so we're going to watch this. It's a 3-minute clip. We're going to watch this, and in the meantime, focus on your why, and then we'll get into it here a little bit more.
We know why we do what we do.
But then how do you explain when things don't go as we assume? Or better, how do you explain when others are able to achieve things that seem to defy all of the assumptions?
Can you all see this?
Why is Apple so innovative? Year after year after year after year, they're more innovative than all their competition. And yet, they're just a computer company. They're just like everyone else. They have the same access to the same talent, the same agencies, the same consultants, the same media. Then why is it that they seem to have something different? Why is it that Martin Luther King led the civil rights movement? He wasn't the only man who suffered in a pre-civil rights America, and he certainly wasn't the only great orator of the day. Why him? And why is it that the Wright brothers were able to figure out controlled powered manned flight when there were certainly other teams who were better qualified, better funded, and they didn't achieve powered manned flight? The Wright brothers beat them to it. There's something else at play here. About 3.5 years ago, I made a discovery. And this discovery profoundly changed my view on how I thought the world worked, and it even profoundly changed the way in which I operated it. As it turns out, there's a pattern. As it turns out, all the great and inspiring leaders and organizations in the world, whether it's Apple or Martin Luther King or the Wright brothers, they all think, act, and communicate the exact same way, and it's the complete opposite to everyone else. All I did was codify it. And it's probably the world's simplest idea. I call it the golden circle. Why, how, what? This little idea explains why some organizations and some leaders are able to inspire where others aren't. Let me define the terms really quickly. Every single person, every single organization on the planet knows what they do, 100%. Some know how they do it, whether you call it your differentiating value proposition or your proprietary process or your USP. But very, very few people or organizations know why they do what they do. And by why, I don't mean to make a profit. That's a result. It's always a result. By why, I mean what's your purpose? What's your cause? What's your belief? Why does your organization exist? Well, as a result, the way we think, the way we act, the way we communicate is from the outside in. It's obvious. We go from the clearest thing to the fuzziest thing. But the inspired leaders and the inspired organizations, regardless of their size, regardless of their industry, all think, act, and communicate from the inside out. Let me give you an example. I use Apple because they're easy to understand and everybody gets it. If Apple were like everyone else, a marketing message from them might sound like this. We make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? Meh. And that's how most of us communicate. That's how most marketing is done, that's how most sales is done, and that's how most of us communicate interpersonally. We say what we do, we say how we're different or how we're better, and we expect some sort of behavior, a purchase, a vote, something like that. Here's our new law firm. We have the best lawyers with the biggest clients. We have, we always perform for our clients, do business with us. Here's our new car. It gets great gas mileage. It has, leather seats. Buy our car. But it's uninspiring. Here's how Apple actually communicates. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? Totally different, right? You're ready to buy a computer from me. All I did was reverse the order of the information. People don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it.
And so that's exactly the point that I'm trying to get at here, because I think the difference is that we're not talking about products, right? We're talking about lives. So instead of it's not what they buy, it's why they buy, it's why that they buy it. It's not what you do that makes you successful, but it's why you do it that makes you successful. Because the why is the driver. It's like trying to drive a car with no engine. You can't do it because you don't have anything fueling you to go get your target. It's the same concept here. And that's what separates the people from achieving greatness to doing nothing with their life. When you look at some of the most successful people in the world, for instance, take Mark Cuban. I mean, this guy owns more than 70 companies, and if you ask him why he's so successful, he'll tell you it's because of his why. Because he knows why he's living, because he has a hunger that makes him more competitive and drives him to work harder than anyone else. Something that Elon Musk says that I really, really love is that he goes, you need a reason to wake up in the morning. Why do you get out of bed? Why are you inspired? And here Elon Musk is controlling 3 different companies at the same time that are changing our world as we know it. My grandma is the happiest person I know in the world because she knows why she's living. She has a purpose, and she tells me every time I come home for break, she always reminds me, I'm living for the Lord and for my family. All right, but she's had all her life to reflect on the fact that those 2 things are the most important to her, and that's why she's on this earth. Okay? A lot of you are thinking, maybe how is this applicable to the job search? How is this going to help me get a job? Well, it's going to be very, very critical in terms of the interview when you actually know why you're in that interview room. But in order to get to that point first, you have to figure out what is your why? What is your purpose? And in order to do this, you have to find your definition. Okay, this could look very different for everyone. I'm not a therapist, and I'm not here to tell you how to find that. But what I can tell you is what I do. Okay, for me, on a weekend, I spend an hour to 2 to reflect on the week behind me. What did I do this week that was really well, and what did I do poorly at? What did I enjoy, and what did I hate? What motivated me, and what bored me? I get introspective, and I meditate. Who meditates in here? Say I. I. Okay, that's awesome. My 8 a.m. class, nobody meditated. And I was like, I look like a weirdo. I probably still do. But meditating is so amazing because you can be introspective when all the distractions are out of your life and you can truly focus on what's in here, on what's in your mind. And over time, as you spend those weeks alone thinking about who you are and why you're on this earth, you begin to think about what is important to you and truly what is your destiny. The reason that I put the Honors Cohort program up here is because you don't have to spend time alone to reflect and to figure out who you are. Okay, where are all my sophomores? Say aye. Aye. Okay, all of you sophomores should apply for the Honors Cohort program right now. The application's open, and there's going to be a link at the end of this presentation. But the reason I bring this up, it's not because Ty forced me to do it, but it's because I want to, because the Honors Cohort program has been the most amazing reflective experience in my college career. Because instead of having to meditate and focus by myself and reflect on myself, I have 30 people, plus a network of the Cohort alumni and Ty Sheffer to motivate me to reflect and to truly ask myself, why am I on this earth? Why am I pursuing investment banking? What's the greater purpose? And so the Honors Cohort program, I'm sure many of you have similar programs that challenge you to think differently. Well, this is one of those, and my point is here, you have to find your definition. Okay, because when you find your definition, here's how it's critical in your job search. When you get in that interview room, what's the interviewer's favorite question? It's why. It's why do you want this job? Why do you want this position? Why do you want this location? And so forth and so forth. What are your long-term plans? What are your strengths and weaknesses? These are all questions that you have to find out by finding your definition. And when you can learn your definition and truly learn it, then instead of telling them some BS answer that you found on Glassdoor, you give them an answer from the heart. And that's authentic, and they pick up on that. And I can guarantee your chances are going to be much higher of getting that job. The last thing I'll leave you with the why is a book called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. How many of you have read the book? Say aye. Aye. So a couple of you. It's a great book, isn't it? I mean, this guy, Viktor Frankl, was a psychiatrist who went through the Holocaust and survived. I mean, survived cannibalism, survived literally bare bones outside in the freezing cold, working his ass off. But he survived those years because he had a why. His wife died. His family was gone. His life's work, his manuscript, was gone. He had nothing. But he survived because he had a why. And one of the things that he said in that novel was, no one man or no one destiny can ever be compared to any other man or any other destiny. And I want you to think about that for a second. What that's telling us is that each and every one of you in this room right now have a destiny. You're each here for a certain reason. I'm challenging you to think bigger than just being a college student and going to get a job in corporate America to work 9 to 5 and make 60 grand a year. I'm challenging you to think differently. Think, how does that fit into your big picture? How does that play a role into your purpose? And if it doesn't, then you should ask yourself, am I doing the right thing? Am I pursuing the right endeavor for after graduation? Once you know your why, that's when you can truly figure out your what. Right? You know the why. Why am I doing something? I'm fueled to do what? And then, in order to do it, you have to believe. And that's what really kicks off the cycle here. So believing is the most important thing you can do before you act. And here's why. Because in life, you don't get what you want. You don't get what you wish for, but you get what you think you deserve. Right? Every philosopher known to man will tell you that believing in yourself is the most powerful thing you can do. A book on this topic is As a Man Thinketh by James Allen, another famous philosopher. And the book is 30 pages. It's an easy read. I encourage you to pick it up. But it talks about how, I think I have a quote up here, how man is not what he wants, but man does not attract what they want, but what they are. Meaning that what you think in your head is what you become. That's why positive thinkers are typically more positive. Those who think they're more successful are typically more successful. It's the thought that drives the action. And here's why it's also important. Oftentimes in life, if you don't believe in yourself, nobody else will. And sometimes it's the other way around in the sense that nobody believes in you, so you have to believe in yourself. Okay, my story goes pretty similar to that. I grew up in a small farm town about 30 minutes south of Cincinnati, Ohio. It's called Crittenden, Kentucky, and there's about 2,000 people there. I mean, I'm talking, I grew up with cattle in my backyard. My friends would drive their tractors to school every now and then. Instead of throwing parties in the houses and apartments, we'd throw them in our horse barns. And if they saw me dressed like this, they'd laugh their ass off, right? How many of you come from somewhere similar? Yeah, I love it. Thank you for that. So some of you guys know what I'm talking about, right? But it's different because, and maybe your areas were like this as well, but my area was very low socioeconomic. The education system was poor. 70% of United States students typically go to a four-year accredited university. Thanks to my town, that number is pulled down because less than 50% of our graduating class goes to a four-year accredited university. And of those people, I can tell you right now, a lot less are enrolled currently, and a lot less will finish their four-year degree because we're not prepared for it. I was the only one to even leave the state. Most people go to some, community technical school, which there's nothing wrong with it, but they grow up with the atmosphere that they are going to live on the farm or they're going to be a manufacturer for the rest of their life. And again, I think our economy needs that, so I'm not bashing that lifestyle at all. But I knew that that's not the lifestyle that I wanted. Growing up, I always dreamt of being a CEO. I mean, that was my goal, and embarrassingly, sometimes I still think that it still is. But the thing is, I knew I didn't want to be in that hometown and the lifestyle for the rest of my life. The reason why it was hard is because my family wasn't too different from this picture. My parents, the most loving parents in the world, but success to them was raising myself and my three brothers. And they killed it. I mean, they raised us so well, and I love them to death, and they're the best parents in the world. But to them, their success doesn't look like going to college. Their success isn't about financial security. So I never grew up with that. And I think, I remember as a kid, my parents would argue all the time, and I was scared when that happened. And my father would work 3 jobs just to put food on the table. I mean, these are the circumstances that I grew up with, and it's hard to face that when I grew up knowing that I wanted more, when I wanted dreams that nobody else around me wanted. And it got tough when my freshman year, I was 14 years old, so 2010, my parents sat me down and said, well, we will support you in whatever you do. And I knew that was true anyway. But they said, unfortunately, we just won't be able to finance if you want to go to college. And imagine how hard that was for me, because at that time, I knew that I wanted to leave the hometown. I knew I needed an Ohio State, or not an Ohio State, but an out-of-state education. That's what I wanted. I wanted to chase my dreams. And so I made a promise to myself that night. I said, I believe I can do it. I looked at the $30,000 was the average for the out-of-state tuition per year. And I said, that's a hell of a lot of money, and I better get working. But I believed in myself. I started mowing lawns. Who in here started mowing lawns in high school? Say aye. Yeah, so a heck of a lot of people, right? I mean, that's not a bad way to make a living. And I used my company, Smith Lawn Care, and grew it, and it's still growing today, 8 years later. But I grew it to where my senior year, I had enough money to go to an out-of-state education, right? But it was the dedication, the belief that I could do that kept me working. I would go to school, I'd go to football practice, I would mow lawns, and then I'd go do my homework and sleep and repeat. I didn't really have much of a social life because of this. But I was driven because of my belief, because I believed I could do it. Here's the thing. I got accepted to Ohio State on February 8th, 2014. I will never forget that day. I mean, I thought I was off to the races. I made enough money to afford an out-of-state education. I just got accepted to the exact spot that I wanted to go. I was ready to go, right? About 5 days later, they didn't even give me a weekend to enjoy it. 5 days later, I get my financial aid package. And I'll never forget this day, because it felt like my success, my future was just crumbling in my eyes. But I opened my financial aid package, and I didn't see out-of-state scholarship. I didn't see scholarships at all. You see, the thing is, I applied late, and so therefore, supposedly, the funds ran out, and I didn't get any. And it was at this time where it's like, not only is my hometown telling me to stay here, not only is everyone around me telling me to stay here, but now the institution of which that I want to attend is telling me that it's not going to be as possible as I once thought it was. It's like they had my dreams and they were just ready to crush it. I called the financial aid office and I pleaded. I broke down and I was just begging for some kind of help, right? And to this day, I feel bad for whoever I talked to on the other end of that line. She heard it for sure. But it was at that time where believing in myself was the most important thing in my life. And I did it. And I said, I promised myself 4 years ago I was going to do this. So I made the promise again. And that's why I'm here. If I never believed in myself, the country boy from Kentucky wouldn't be here and wouldn't be going to New York City for a job right after graduation. It's the belief system that keeps you going when the things get tough. And you need it. And first of all, the other thing is I'm not the only example of this. Everybody knows the Walt Disney story, right? That guy was fired from his first job at the age of 22. He wasn't creative enough, so they said. And then he went to start another company called Laugh-O-Gram Studios. Because of the name, I would presume, it went bankrupt. And then he goes to start Walt Disney and becomes one of the largest media and entertainment companies in the world. Michael Jordan, you guys are familiar with that, right? He failed to get on the varsity high school roster, went in his room, locked himself in there, cried, but the next day he got up and he believed that he could be the best basketball player, and because of that, he worked day in and day out in that gym and reminded himself of the failure that he encountered and believed that he could do it. So my point is this. In order to achieve whatever aspiration it is, whether it's just a job, whether it's changing the world or creating the next new product, whatever it is, I challenge you that you need to believe you can do it before you can. And once you have that belief system in place, that's when you can get to the action, right? That's when we move on to the success cycle, and that's where it really starts to turn. When you have your belief in set, this is where you now have to put in the hard work. For those of you looking for an internship, for the sake of that, we're going to focus the action on the interviewing process. Because I think that the action can be modified for any circumstance, whatever your aspirations are, it can be modified. So for the sake of this, we're going to focus on the interviewing. And what I'm going to say is this. Over the past 4 years, I've had a little over 35 interviews with 12 different companies. And through those experiences, I found that this recruiting process is simple. It comes down to 3 things. You got to network, you have to interview, and then you have to perform. Right? The career fair is coming up, right? What's the date for that? February 6th, thank you. Who's going to that? Say aye. Aye. A lot of you, that's awesome. These companies are going to get a lot of great candidates. But here's the thing, here's the catch. I've gone to one career fair, didn't get a job, and that's it. Every other internship that I've had, every job has come from networking, not the career fair. Not to say that it's not a bad thing, right? I still think that you should go. But the networking piece here is so important. And real quick, before we dive into the networking piece, what I should say is this. I'm not putting a lot of notes on this, and there's not going to be a lot of tangible takeaways for you guys who are looking for a job to say, man, what he said about that how to interview is really going to help me. The reason being is because I don't want to get too dry here. And like I said, I'm not trying to take up hours of your time. So what I've done is, at the end of 2016, when I finished my recruiting process, I wrote a recruiting book. And it's like 40 pages that's being reviewed right now by students who have also gone through recruiting, and then like industry professionals, all the way from the analyst level to people in the executive level, to really kind of put that stamp of approval on it. And then all of you guys are going to get a copy of that as soon as it's done. And so it should be like a week or two. You all will get a copy of that. And that really goes in depth of how to ace a coffee chat, how to cold call somebody, or how to ask the right questions during interviews, or how to answer the right questions in interviews, okay? So you guys will get that. So don't worry about the tangible sense and so much. The notes that you should be taking on this are easy because I didn't include a lot. So networking is simple. Foresight of relationships is key. What do I mean by this? So what is foresight? Can somebody tell me what foresight is? Very quickly. Looking forward, yeah, basically. So kind of evaluating something before it happens. So when you look at me, or when you look at the person that you just introduced yourself to, you should be thinking, is this person somebody that I want to stay in touch with, or is this somebody that I should reach out to? You should weigh the pros and the cons. And first, before I get into this, I'm not telling you to look at every relationship and ask yourself, is this profitable? Right? Is this person going to be beneficial for me? No, because a relationship works 2 ways. There's 2 sides to that street. Okay? But what I am saying is that in terms of professional sense, and people that you just pass day in and day out, ask yourself, what could be the benefits if you reached out to them? And of course, you always have to ask yourself, too, what's the worst thing that could happen? But often I find that the worst thing that can happen by just simply reaching out to somebody is maybe they don't like you, Maybe they don't respond to your email or things just don't go well. But the upside outweighs the downside 100 times full. So having four-sided relationships is simple. I'll give you a quick example of this, and then I want you guys to think of an example as well. My freshman year, I attended a fraternity conference in Chicago, Illinois. One of the speakers there was just off the charts. I mean, he blew me away. And his name was Brent Osborne, and I said, I got to meet this guy. I kind of weighed the pros and cons, right? I was a freshman at the time, didn't know much. And the hard thing was it's the intimidation factor, right, of just introducing yourself to someone. That's a tough thing to do. But I thought about what are the possibilities of meeting this guy. And at the time, I had no idea what they actually were, but I thought there might be something there. And so I reached out to Brent Osborne. Turns out he lives in Columbus, Ohio, and he was in the same fraternity I was. Next thing you know, we're having dinner one night, and he says, Wes, have you thought about a freshman internship? I said, no. I was just going to go back to Kentucky and mow some more lawns. That seems to be working out for me. And he goes, no, let me introduce you to my friend, Jeff Chaddick. And he puts me in touch with this man, Jeff Chaddick, he started a financial practice at the age of 20 with Ameriprise Financial, and is now one of the most successful practices of Ameriprise in Columbus, Ohio. And I had dinner with Jeff and Brent, and Jeff gave me an offer on the spot for a summer internship my freshman year. And that experience turned out to change my life forever, because this man not only just gave me an offer, but gave me a valuable learning experience. He was flying me to New York and Maryland, California, and all over the country to meet with clients and to experience these places that, first of all, I'd never been to New York or California. I'd never really been outside of Kentucky or Ohio. He was changing my life. Next thing you know, he wants me to work full-time for him my sophomore year and move in with him to become his nutritionist. And when he told me he lived in a penthouse in downtown Columbus, I was like, heck yeah. Like, who wouldn't take that as your sophomore year? And so I did that, and it gets even better because this man helped me get into Buckeye Leadership Fellows program. Who's heard of that here? Buckeye Leadership Fellows? Say aye. So a couple of you. Buckeye Leadership Fellows is like the Honors Cohort program, but for the university-wide. So all sophomores, that's also another great program to look into. But then he helped me navigate my sophomore internship. This guy, Jeff Chaddick, changed my life forever. And I can promise you I wouldn't be standing here today. How many of you guys can think of somebody like that if you didn't reach out to them, you might not be sitting here? Or maybe you wouldn't have gone to some conference, or maybe you wouldn't have learned something. I want you to take a second to think about that, and then talk to somebody next to you and tell them very quickly about that experience, and then I want to hear a couple of them. Okay? Go ahead. Okay. So somebody tell me one, whether it's yourself or somebody else's story, just very quickly. What did you do, or who did you reach out to, and what did they help you do in your life? We need 2 examples before we can go. Very quickly. You guys did talk about this, right? You guys just weren't chatting. Yeah.
Last week, I met a girl named Addie Goodwin, who's a recruiter for EY, and I had no idea who the Big Four were because I'm a freshman. I didn't know what was going on. And she taught me about this thing called the Emerging Leaders Program, and hooked me up with that probably locked down a job with the Risk Advisory Program at Winston.
Hell yeah. What's your name?
Will.
Will. Give it up for Will. Right? That's awesome. So what happens if you all reach out to more, what was her name? Addie. What happens if we reach out to more Addies? What happens if we reach out to more Brent Osbornes? Think about that for a second. How would your life potentially be different. And I encourage you to face the fear of failure of what happens if they don't reach out to me, or if they don't reply. What happens if they don't like me? Face that failure, because the chances of you being successful in that endeavor are much higher. And so with that, I hope that all of you are reaching out to Ty. Is a great resource. I hope everyone reaches out to people that come in this room. I hope you all reach out to me, whether that's for a question about this presentation or a question about life, or just to get to know me. Regardless, the relationships that are out there that you're forgoing by not simply introducing yourself to someone could be the chance of a lifetime, could be something that could really impact your life forever if you were to do it. Now, that's not as tangible for the job or for how to get an interview, right? Because having four-sided relationships, what are you trying to tell me to do, right? Go to conferences or seminars? That's not exactly the point. And so to help you more with specific, tangible networking things for a job search to help get you the internship, this is what I find to be most effective. Number one, when you start reaching out to Ohio State people, there's going to be a lot of them. And so it's going to be important for you to organize via Excel spreadsheet. And it's as simple as this, okay? There's an appendix about this in the guide that you guys will get. So don't worry too much about trying to remember this. But it's as simple as first name, last name, company, position, how long they've been there, and most importantly, similarities. What do I have in common with that person? Because people love other people that are similar to them. And if you can say in the subject line, Ohio State Buck, or Ohio State BCI, Ohio State UBC, Ohio State whatever your fraternity or sorority is, they're going to want to reach out, they're going to respond to you much more than they would anyone else. So organize that according to your similarities. The next is prioritize your closest connections. What I want you to think about here is like a circle of relationships. And when you start networking, it's kind of like a dartboard. So there are several sections to the circle. And in the middle is your closest connections. And these are people, for most of you in the room, I hope, maybe family or friends. Because if you can get a trusted person to refer you to somebody, the likelihood of you getting the interview is 99%. For those who don't have family or friends in the industry, like myself, I didn't. That's perfectly okay. How many of you are in a program here at Ohio State? Say aye. So a lot of you. Say that program, that program, if you can reach out to somebody in the industry that you're interested in that was in that program, that's going to be much more effective than you just reaching out to somebody that just generally went to Ohio State. So start with your smallest connections first, and then from there you build out, and eventually then you start reaching out to people that are just from Ohio State. Then you start reaching out to people that are from your state where you're from, or from the Midwest, from the Big Ten. Right? As hard as it is to do it, people from Michigan still respond to you as an Ohio State student because it's the Big Ten network, and there's something about that network that people love and are willing to help you out with. Next is do your research and ask great questions. This might be arguably the most important part of this process. This past summer when I interned with Barclays Investment Bank, I sat next to 3 different analysts that were networking with younger students every single day. And every time they get off that call, first of all, they gossip about the call and talk about what they liked and didn't like about the person. But the first thing that they'll start talking about is did or did they not ask good questions. And what this means is researching the industry and the job and the person that you're going to talk to find out more before you know on the call. So you're asking more inquisitive questions like, what are the advantages of this program instead of what programs do you have? Or instead of, could you tell me about your internship experience abroad, that's better than just saying what internships have you had that led you to your position. Do you get the point? Right, so if you research questions, it's going to be much better, and then you can have a more thoughtful conversation and more direct. Number 4 is follow up and stay in touch. I think that's self-explanatory. But number 5, and there's more on that in the guide, number 5 is find your champion. What I mean by this is the champion is the person, like my Jeff Chaddick, that was my champion. I have a few other champions. Ty Sheffer is one of my champions. Your champion is the person who is willing to lose sleep for you to help you out in whatever endeavor you have. Whether that's getting an interview, whether that's, I had a scholarship fund that I started. I used other people that had also started a scholarship fund, and those people like Ty have helped me get it done. Whatever it is that you're willing to do, your champion is the person that's going to be most willing to help you out with that. Once you find that champion, I think things get a little more simpler, particularly in the interview part. When you need an interview, go to your champion, and they'll be able to help you navigate that process. Any questions about that, particularly? None? So the next, right, part 2 is the interview. This is critical, and we could spend all day talking about this, but we're not because it's in the guide, and I don't want to be too dry here. So look, these are some pages from the guide that you'll see being sent to you. And this goes in depth, as you can tell, in terms of what to wear and to pre-interview. My favorite is find your confidence builder. And that's something like when I would go into an interview, I'd put my headphones in and pretend I was talking to somebody on the phone, when in reality I was just talking to myself, boosting my morale and boosting the confidence, right? So small things like that are going to really help you in an interview regardless of how corny they sound. Okay? 2 things that I'll bring up for the interview for the sake of this presentation. 1, something we talked about already, finding your why. When you know your definition, you will be able to walk in those interviews and truly talk from the heart. And you're going to know your strengths and your weaknesses because you reflected on what you're good and what you're bad at. So you can truly answer those questions, and you're going to come across as a much more qualified candidate. The second thing is when you go into these interviews, don't call them an interview. I might actually change that to say conversation, because that's all they are. They're just conversations. When I walked in here today, I didn't say it's a presentation. I said I'm having a conversation with 2292 because it's a lot more relaxing. Right? When I say I'm having a conversation with you guys, I'm myself right now. I mean, I'm communicating as if I would to my best friends. Because your pressure point's released, your stress is lower. It's just less intimidating for you to take in. The last thing here is perform. So you get the internship. What do you got to do to get the full-time offer? It's pretty simple. From my internships, this is what's gotten me the offers. Number 1 is stay positive. There's a lot of negative people in the workforce. I think that's because they don't know their why. So they're stuck in a 9-to-5 that they hate. But you have to be the positive intern that brightens the mood. Takes a lot of work and still smiles about it. Okay? The second thing is ask questions of your work, of topics about the market or about the industry that you're in. Pull aside your analyst or your manager and ask them questions that you have. Show that you're curious. And then the last thing is take initiative. This is simply just asking for more work. Because at the end of the day, if you can show that you can take on more work and you're willing to, that's valuable. One of the things that I did this past summer, as an example of this, we had an email that was sent around on our floor every week. And it was basically like a market overview of the power and utilities industry. And so I went to the analyst and I said, hey, is there any way I could lighten your workload and just take over that email? Why? Because it gave me, it would give me exposure to the floor, and it would show that I'm looking for more work. And honestly, I think that I had a helping hand in getting the offer because I had exposure, and everyone knew that Wes Smith was the guy who sent out the weekly email. So small things like that, I think, could be very beneficial. The last thing that I'll say, in terms of the action part here, let's rewind to networking. Not sure if it's useful to go back to the slide, but look, at the end of the day, here's what you need to remember about networking. It's not about the resources. It's about being resourceful. Everyone in here has the luxury of going to one of the best schools in the country with the largest network available. You all have access to those resources. It's not about that. It's about, are you going to reach out to them or not? If you want to work in New York City, say aye. All of you guys, there are more than 100 people in finance from Ohio State and New York. And any other major, I'm sure there are a lot there as well. What about California? Who's interested in California? Say aye. Aye. Great. So in California, little fun fact here, we have a 1967 graduate by the name of Ken Coleman. Write that down because Ken Coleman is like on the board of almost every prominent startup over the past few decades. We have a lot of alumni in California. We have all the resources in the world, but people just don't know it or they don't take advantage of it. So it's not about having the resources, it's about being resourceful. As we wind up the success cycle and I wind up the presentation, you're starting to see this kind of come together, right? Understand how it all fits in the cycle. Once you believe you can do it, you do it, then what happens? You get the results. That's where the adversity becomes so sweet. That's where the success makes all that hard work feel worth it. But the reason it's called a cycle is because when you make your first million, those results are going to drive you to want to make more. And that belief that you have is going to be much stronger that you can make more millions because you've already done it. Right? That's why they say the hardest million is the first million. That's why the hardest company to start is your first company. But after that, every other company is easier. After your first million, making more millions is as easy as saving 15% on car insurance when you switch to Geico. Right? It's that easy because you get in this cycle to where you believe, okay, you have $0 in your bank account. You say, I believe I can become a millionaire. And I know that's not what everyone wants to do. That's not the point here. And so but you act, you work your ass off to get there. You get the $1 million, and you say, I did it. Now I can do more. Right? Now I want another Ferrari, or now I want another Lamborghini. And that motivates you, and you do more, and you push more. Here's the other thing about the results that makes this cycle turn even faster. Not only do you motivate yourself, but when you're producing results, like whatever it is that success looks like to you, you then begin to attract like-minded individuals. Who here is familiar with Kid Cudi? Yeah, he's from Shaker Heights, east of Cleveland, and he gave a TED Talk that I enjoy because one of the points he says is that, he goes, how are you going to get rich if you're not hanging around rich people? He says, how are you going to get smart if you're not hanging around smart people? And that is so true. Jim Rohn, my favorite philosopher of all time, says that you are the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with. When you are successful, whatever endeavor that looks like to you, you begin to get surrounded with more successful people in that area. My best friend, Alex Campana, sitting up in the very top row today, is my best friend because I have attracted him through the similar successes that he and I share. Okay? We attract people. That's why Adam Martin's in the crowd. That's why Uwe Wade's in the crowd. These people are here for me because we attract each other. We are in our circles because we motivate each other. And that is what drives that cycle. That's what brings the cycle to fruition. I'm going to close on this point, and then I'm going to open it up for a few questions if anybody has any. But there is a reason that this is called a success cycle and not a fulfillment cycle. You can follow this cycle all day long, and you can be the most successful, richest person in the world if that's what you want. But I challenge you to find what fulfills you. Because honestly, I don't think having a career that's going to make you millions and billions of dollars is going to be that fulfillment. And if that is, that's okay. But I want to make sure you leave here today knowing that that's not the point of this. Regardless of what your success is, I hope that you use this cycle to find what fulfills you. And I mean truly fulfills you. I love giving. I love contributing back to society. And so I can use this cycle to do that more. If you're a health nut and you love working out, you can use this cycle to get bigger and better. You can use this for your family. You can use this for whatever is success to you. And so I ask that you use this in multiple capacities to truly fulfill your life. And don't wait either. That's the last thing I'm going to say. Don't wait. You see, people don't start living until they face death. People don't start living until they face death. When you're told that you have 6 months to live, I want you to really think about that. When you're told you have 6 months to live, that's when you kick your ass in gear and you say, I better live these 6 months damn well. Don't make the mistake of waiting until that time. Don't make the mistake of waiting till your retirement to start living your life and achieving your successes. The time is now, and I encourage you, and I challenge you to take this with you when you leave today and really make a life that's worth living. Thank you. So quickly, does anybody have questions? We have a few minutes left. I want to answer any questions if anybody has any. Yeah.
So, in thinking back, what strategies have you used to make sure that the results feed into belief, but it doesn't change your why?
It's okay if your why changes, and I hope that wasn't the point because what I was going to say earlier is like your why will change a lot. I mean, you grow up and life changes you, so your why will change. And giving back, I think it's a different cycle. Like, my career cycle is different, but I can still be successful in my career. You can still make billions of dollars and be the largest philanthropist in the world. I mean, that's what Bill Gates is doing, Mark Zuckerberg, you name it. So you can give back while doing, you can do it simultaneously. Okay, you guys are ready to go. So look, here's the thing. My email's up here. Please reach out to me, whether that's to give negative or positive feedback about this, whether you have questions about the presentation, careers, life in general, answer. The application owner's cohort is up here too, and the only Instagram, or the only social media account that I enjoy is Instagram, so please give me a follow and we'll follow my life. Thanks, guys.